Money has never been more accessible for some people, yet millions of middle-class families still feel like they're barely getting ahead.
Maybe the biggest surprise is that earning a good income and becoming wealthy are two completely different goals.
Most people assume a higher salary automatically solves financial problems.
But if that were true, we wouldn't constantly hear stories about high earners living paycheck to paycheck.
That's always fascinated me because income creates opportunity, but habits decide whether that opportunity grows or disappears.
Exactly, and I think the middle class often mistakes stability for financial progress.
Explain what you mean, because those sound similar on the surface.
Stability means your bills are paid this month, while financial progress means you're building assets that will eventually pay your bills for you.
That's a distinction most people never stop to think about.
Imagine two people earning the same salary, shopping at the same stores, and living in the same neighborhood.
Most people would assume they're on the same financial path.
Yet one quietly invests part of every paycheck, while the other upgrades every part of their lifestyle whenever income increases.
5 years later, they may look equally successful from the outside.
10 years later, their financial lives can be completely different.
It's interesting how wealth usually grows quietly, while spending announces itself every chance it gets.
That's probably why expensive lifestyles are so easy to admire and actual wealth is so easy to overlook.
I think social media has made that problem even worse, because people compare their real bank account with someone else's carefully edited highlight reel.
And comparison quietly turns perfectly reasonable lifestyles into ones that suddenly feel inadequate.
Which often leads people to spend money solving emotional discomfort instead of improving their financial future.
The uncomfortable truth is that the middle class usually doesn't stay broke because of one dramatic mistake, but because of hundreds of small decisions that seem harmless on their own.
That idea reminds me of a leaky bucket, because no single hole looks serious until you wonder why it never fills.
I like that analogy because people usually search for one big financial breakthrough while ignoring dozens of tiny financial leaks.
Subscriptions are a perfect example, since most seem insignificant on their own.
It's rarely one subscription that causes trouble, but it's the habit of never questioning recurring expenses.
The same thing happens with cars, because many people buy based on the monthly payment instead of the total cost.
That's one of the smartest marketing tricks ever created, because a lower monthly payment makes a larger purchase feel affordable.
The payment becomes the focus while the actual price quietly fades into the background.
And once that thinking spreads to furniture, electronics, vacations, and home renovations, cash flow starts feeling tight no matter how much you earn.
Do you think the middle class has become too comfortable financing everything?
In many cases, yes, because financing isn't inherently bad, but using it to consume instead of build wealth creates long-term pressure.
Some people hear the word debt and immediately assume it's always dangerous.
Debt is simply a tool, and like any tool, its value depends on how it's used.
Borrowing to expand a profitable business isn't the same as borrowing for something that loses value every year.
That's where assets and liabilities become important, even though those terms sound intimidating.
An asset is something that has the potential to put money into your pocket or grow in value over time.
A liability is something that regularly takes money out of your pocket through payments, maintenance, or depreciation.
That's surprisingly simple when you explain it that way.
Simple doesn't always mean easy, because knowing the difference and acting on it are two very different things.
I knew someone who celebrated every raise by increasing his spending before receiving his first larger paycheck.
That's how lifestyle inflation quietly convinces hardworking people that they're making financial progress when they're really just running faster on the same treadmill.
Here's something that surprised me years ago. Many wealthy people don't ask, "Can I afford this?" They ask, "Will this help me build more wealth?" That's a subtle difference, but it completely changes how you make decisions.
Buying something because you can afford the payment isn't the same as buying something that improves your financial future.
Exactly, because affordability is about today, while wealth building is about tomorrow.
I think that's where patience becomes an underrated financial skill.
Especially in a world where almost everything can be delivered to your door tomorrow.
We've trained ourselves to expect instant gratification, but wealth usually rewards delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification simply means choosing a bigger future reward instead of a smaller immediate pleasure.
That sounds easy until you're standing in a showroom looking at a brand new luxury SUV.
Or scrolling through social media where everyone appears to be living a dream life.
The funny part is that nobody posts a picture of increasing their retirement contributions.
Or building an emergency fund, even though that's often a far more meaningful financial achievement.
Speaking of emergency funds, I don't think people appreciate how much stress they actually remove.
I couldn't agree more, because an emergency fund doesn't just protect your money, it protects your decisions.
Explain that one, because I think it's an important point.
When unexpected expenses happen and you have savings, you make calm decisions instead of desperate ones.
Without that cushion, even a broken water heater or a medical bill can push someone toward expensive credit card debt.
And once high-interest debt starts growing, it quietly competes against your ability to build wealth.
That's why financial independence often begins with small, boring habits that don't look impressive at all.
Ironically, the habits that attract the least attention today often create the greatest freedom years later.
Let me challenge something people say all the time. I'll start investing when I have more money. I hear that constantly, but if someone never learns to manage a small amount, why would they suddenly manage a larger amount better?
That's uncomfortable because it suggests the problem isn't always income.
Income matters, but behavior usually scales with income unless something changes.
Imagine someone who saves nothing while earning $70,000 a year.
Then imagine that same person starts earning $120,000, but keeps the same spending habits.
They probably end up with a nicer lifestyle instead of a stronger balance sheet.
Exactly, because more income often magnifies existing habits instead of replacing them.
I think that's why lottery winners are such an interesting example.
Not because winning money is a financial strategy, but because it shows that sudden wealth doesn't automatically create lasting wealth.
Money can solve cash problems, but it can't instantly create financial discipline.
Discipline is built through repeated decisions, not unexpected windfalls.
Here's another belief I'd question. Owning a home always makes you wealthy.
That's one of the biggest financial myths, because a home can be a wonderful place to live without automatically being a great investment.
People sometimes confuse emotional value with financial value.
And both matter, but they shouldn't be treated as if they're the same thing.
A home provides security, memories, and stability for a family.
But it also comes with property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, and financing costs that many first-time buyers underestimate.
None of that means buying a home is wrong. It simply means every financial decision deserves careful analysis instead of blind assumptions.
That's really the pattern we're seeing, because the middle class often struggles not from one catastrophic decision, but from believing common financial myths without questioning them.
Let me throw out another unpopular opinion. Budgeting isn't what most people hate.
Then what do they actually hate?
They hate confronting the gap between what they want today and what they want 10 years from now.
That's interesting, because a budget is really just a written list of priorities.
Exactly, and every dollar has only one job, so giving it multiple jobs usually ends badly.
It's like trying to reserve the same hotel room for two different families on the same night.
That's a perfect example, because money works the same way.
Yet many people mentally spend future paychecks before they've even earned them.
Which explains why payday feels exciting for about 24 hours.
Then reality arrives with rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, and credit card payments.
Have you noticed how many people celebrate raises with bigger monthly commitments instead of bigger savings?
It's almost automatic, because higher income often feels like permission to spend rather than permission to invest.
I used to think financial freedom came from earning more.
Then what changed your mind?
I met someone whose income was lower than mine, but whose investments were quietly growing every single month.
So while everyone else was talking about their next purchase, that person was buying pieces of businesses through investments.
That's a mindset shift most people never experience.
They realize wealth isn't only built by working for money, but also by letting money work for them.
And that's where compound growth becomes so powerful.
Compound growth simply means your money earns returns, and then those returns begin earning returns too, allowing growth to build on itself over time.
The frustrating part is that compound growth rewards consistency more than excitement.
Which is probably why it gets ignored, because consistency rarely makes headlines.
People love hearing about someone who doubled their money overnight.
But they lose interest when you tell them about someone who invested steadily for 20 years.
That's because dramatic stories are entertaining, while disciplined stories are usually quiet.
Yet quiet stories often end with far better financial outcomes.
Here's something I wish more young professionals understood. Your first investment doesn't have to be perfect.
It just has to begin, because waiting for perfect timing often becomes permanent waiting.
That's another trap the middle class falls into, believing they need to know everything before taking the first step.
Meanwhile, they become experts at researching and beginners at acting.
Analysis has value, but endless analysis can become another form of procrastination.
Especially when fear disguises itself as preparation.
Have you ever noticed how people will spend weeks comparing televisions, but only minutes comparing retirement plans?
That comparison always makes me smile, because one purchase entertains you for a few years while the other influences decades of your life.
We naturally pay more attention to things we can see immediately.
Which means invisible financial decisions often receive the least attention despite having the greatest long-term impact.
Retirement planning feels far away until one day it suddenly isn't.
And time is one resource that can't be earned back once it's gone.
That's why starting early matters so much, because time often contributes more to long-term wealth than trying to find extraordinary investment returns.
The middle class doesn't always lose because of poor opportunities. Sometimes it loses because it quietly underestimates the value of time.
Here's another uncomfortable truth. Many people focus on increasing income, but never increase their financial knowledge.
That's like buying a faster car without ever learning how to drive well.
The engine improves, but the decisions behind the wheel stay exactly the same.
And eventually, those decisions determine the destination more than the horsepower.
I've always wondered why personal finance isn't taught more seriously before people start earning money.
We spend years learning algebra and history, but many adults sign their first loan agreement without fully understanding how interest works.
That's expensive education because the mistakes happen with real dollars instead of classroom exercises.
Sometimes the tuition for those lessons lasts for decades.
I think credit cards are a perfect example because they're incredibly useful when managed carefully.
But incredibly expensive when they become a way to fund a lifestyle instead of handling short-term convenience.
The danger isn't the card itself. It's believing tomorrow's income should pay for today's wants.
That's when future earnings slowly become committed before they even arrive.
Have you noticed that financial stress rarely comes from one massive purchase?
More often, it's dozens of recurring obligations quietly stacking on top of each other.
Every monthly payment looks manageable by itself.
But together, they slowly reduce your ability to save, invest, or handle unexpected expenses.
It's almost like carrying one shopping bag doesn't feel heavy.
Then someone hands you another and another until you're wondering why walking suddenly feels exhausting.
Financial pressure builds the same way because it's usually gradual before it becomes overwhelming.
And by the time people recognize the weight, they've often mistaken those obligations for a normal way of living.
Let me ask you something. When people say they're broke, do they always mean they have no money?
Not necessarily, because sometimes they mean every dollar they earn already has a destination before it even reaches their bank account.
That's a completely different kind of problem.
It is, because cash is coming in, but flexibility has disappeared.
Financial flexibility might be one of the most underrated forms of wealth.
I agree, because flexibility lets you change jobs, start a business, take time off, or handle emergencies without your entire life falling apart.
And ironically, the people who appear richest aren't always the ones with the most flexibility.
Sometimes they're maintaining an expensive lifestyle that requires every paycheck to arrive exactly on schedule.
That's a stressful way to live, even if it looks impressive from the outside.
Which proves that appearances can hide financial fragility.
I think consumer culture deserves part of the blame too.
It certainly encourages the idea that your next purchase will finally make you feel successful.
But that feeling usually fades much faster than the monthly payment.
That's because experiences and possessions affect us differently over time.
Explain what you mean.
A new gadget feels exciting for a few weeks, but your brain quickly adjusts and starts looking for the next upgrade.
So the satisfaction gets shorter while the spending keeps getting bigger.
Exactly, and that's one reason why chasing status can become an endless cycle.
Maybe the wealthiest habit isn't buying more things, but needing fewer things to feel successful.
That's a powerful shift because once your self-worth stops depending on your spending, your financial future becomes much easier to control.
Here's something I used to believe. Rich people take huge risks while the middle class plays it safe.
I've changed my mind because the most successful investors I know spend far more time managing risk than chasing it.
That's a perspective you rarely hear because bold decisions get the attention, while careful decisions build the fortune.
Exactly. Surviving for decades often matters more than winning spectacularly for 1 year.
That reminds me of a small business owner I met who expanded slowly instead of opening 3 locations at once.
Most people thought he lacked ambition, but he was protecting his cash flow and avoiding unnecessary debt.
5 years later, he owned multiple profitable locations, while several faster-growing competitors had already closed.
Sometimes patience looks like hesitation until enough time passes to reveal it was wisdom.
The same principle applies to investing because consistency usually beats constantly chasing the next hot opportunity.
People often confuse activity with progress.
Buying and selling investments every few weeks can feel productive.
But feeling productive and creating wealth aren't always the same thing.
That's true in careers as well, because switching jobs every year for a slightly higher salary isn't automatically the best long-term strategy.
Sometimes developing rare skills creates much greater earning power than constantly chasing the next paycheck.
Skills are interesting because nobody can inflate them away or repossess them,
They're one of the few assets you carry with you wherever you go.
which makes learning one of the highest return investments available.
And unlike many purchases, knowledge often creates opportunities long after you've paid for it.
Maybe that's why financially successful people never really stop learning, even after they've reached their goals.
I think that's one of the biggest differences because they treat education as a lifelong investment instead of something that ended with graduation.
Let me ask you something that sounds simple, but isn't. What does being rich actually mean?
Most people answer that question with a number instead of a lifestyle.
That's because we've been taught to measure wealth by income instead of freedom.
And freedom is much harder to photograph than a luxury car.
Imagine 2 people with the same net worth, but one has complete control over their time while the other works 80 hours a week just to maintain it.
Most people would call them equally successful, but I'd argue they're living completely different lives.
Time quietly becomes more valuable as your financial foundation becomes stronger.
Which is why the ultimate goal isn't simply accumulating money, but gaining more choices.
That's an important distinction because choices reduce stress in ways money alone never can.
Exactly, because wealth isn't only about what you can buy, it's also about what you no longer have to tolerate.
I remember talking to someone who turned down a higher-paying job because it came with constant travel and almost no family time.
10 years ago, I would have thought that decision was irrational.
And now?
Now I think he understood something many people discover too late, that maximizing income and maximizing life aren't always the same objective.
That's where defining your own version of success becomes critical.
Otherwise, you'll spend years climbing a ladder without asking whether it's leaning against the right wall.
I think the middle class often feels trapped because it follows a financial script that was written by someone else.
Go to school, get a stable job, keep upgrading your lifestyle, and hope everything works out.
There's nothing wrong with stability, but stability without intentional wealth building can quietly become financial stagnation.
And that's why the people who eventually break out usually change their thinking long before their bank account changes.
If you had to name one habit that separates financially successful people from everyone else, what would it be?
I'd say they consistently spend less than they earn, no matter how much they make.
That sounds almost too simple to be powerful.
Most powerful financial principles are simple, but they're difficult to practice consistently.
People often search for a secret investment when the real breakthrough starts with controlling cash flow.
Positive cash flow simply means more money comes in than goes out, leaving room to save and invest.
Without positive cash flow, every financial goal becomes an uphill battle.
And with it, even modest incomes can begin creating long-term wealth.
I also think people underestimate the value of saying no.
Every financial yes usually requires another financial no somewhere else.
That's true because money is limited, but opportunities seem endless.
which means choosing wisely matters more than choosing often.
I remember someone asking me why wealthy people don't always buy the biggest house they can afford.
Because they understand that just because a bank approves a loan doesn't mean it's the smartest financial decision.
Banks evaluate whether you can make the payments.
They don't decide whether those payments help you reach your personal financial goals.
That's a difference more people should think about before making major purchases.
Financial decisions should fit your future, not just your current income.
When I look back at everything we've discussed, I keep coming back to one idea.
The middle class rarely falls behind overnight. It happens gradually through ordinary decisions repeated for years.
And the encouraging part is that the same process works in reverse because small, smart decisions repeated for years can completely change your financial future.
That's what gives people hope, because you don't have to rebuild your life in a single weekend.
You just have to become a little better with money than you were yesterday.
Those improvements may feel invisible at first, but invisible progress has a way of becoming undeniable over time.
I think people often wait for motivation before changing their habits.
The problem is that motivation comes and goes, while systems keep working even when you don't feel inspired.
So instead of relying on willpower, make good financial choices automatic whenever possible.
Exactly, because automatic saving and consistent investing remove emotion from decisions that should be based on discipline.
Looking back, it's interesting that we barely talked about becoming rich quickly.
That's because staying wealthy is usually far more important than becoming wealthy quickly.
If someone watching asked for one piece of advice, I'd tell them to stop comparing their finances to other people's lifestyles.
I'd tell them to compare today's habits with yesterday's habits, because that's where real progress happens.
Wealth isn't built by trying to impress strangers.
It's built by making decisions your future self will quietly thank you for.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all.
The middle class doesn't stay broke because success is impossible. It often stays stuck because small financial habits go unquestioned for too long.
Once those habits begin to change, the direction of your financial life can change too.
Building wealth isn't about being perfect. It's about making more good financial decisions than bad ones over a long period of time.
If this conversation challenged the way you think about money, you're already taking the first step toward changing your financial future.
Subscribe for more thoughtful conversations about money, investing, business, and long-term wealth, and we'll see you in the next discussion.